Ephraim?
Yeah, I'm at the University of the Philippines, in the Philippines.
That's fascinating. I was talking with, do you know JC Gayad?
I'm not sure.
Have you come across AnthroWatch?
Sorry?
Have you come across AnthroWatch?
I know.
It was started by a prof at the University of Philippines, and it's working with indigenous people in the Philippines, a guy called Abe.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
What? All Filipinos don't know every Filipino? What are you talking about, Ephraim?
Yeah, we're just 100 million.
Hey,
So.
if you walk
Yeah,
back
100 million.
to the Philippines and you're into participatory mapping, why wouldn't you know each other?
It's like people assume like Michigan's really tiny and they're like, oh, you could just go up north, it'll be great. I'm like, yeah, 13-hour drive later.
We're still
Sorry, John, I know that one was at your expense. But so I wanted to kind of give everyone an overview of our executive committee, kind of what our kind of vision is and how it's changed in the last 4 years since we started, because this was our first cohort. And obviously there were a lot of mistakes made and, you know, things that we wish we could redo or do differently. And so we want to share our wisdom with the next cohort, or at least our failings, and see how we might be able to strengthen the organization and create a more sustainable one. So 2017, Ephraim and Rudo Kemper and a couple other individuals, we were invited to an international conference of participatory mapping at Cal Poly with the late Professor Greg Brown, who we kind of went up to with our qualms and said, there's not enough representation here. We need more practitioners. You know, all the normal things that critical theorists like to take to participatory mappers. And he said, okay, yeah, this sounds great, but like, are you really going to do something with it? And we're like, yes, we will. And he said, okay, well, if you're really going to do it, I'll give you the money to start the organization. So Greg gave us the money to start, was a great advisor all the way until his tragic death too early. And we miss him. But we'd like to carry on his kind of torch of doing this kind of a little bit more radical work outside of his work at Landscape Values, where we're kind of much more focused on providing support to marginalized communities and communities that don't normally have access to technology or training in participatory mapping. So when we started, we had these grand ideas. We were going to hold these biannual conferences or these like regional conferences, and it was going to be this big thing. And then we were only able to find kind of one university to host us in Helsinki. That's not, that's still in the West. And obviously we received kind of the same critical feedback we had in the past. And so we were like, well, how are we going to fix this? And we decided to move to a structure that's just digital space, where we can kind of engage each other, hopefully still be able to get participation from communities that normally wouldn't be able to, and then maybe even reduce our carbon emissions by not traveling quite so far when we can try to teach each other more virtually. So this is kind of the struggle structure we've been trying to navigate. We used to have yearly dues there were like $25 for practitioners and $50 for faculty, but we decided that wasn't inclusive enough. We did have a kind of discount fee, but we were worried maybe just a fee was putting people off, which it definitely was, because as soon as we opened our MightyNetwork up for free, it grew exponentially and has been doing really well. And so we'd like to keep it that way. Our overhead cost for the MightyNetwork, which is our only expense, our hosting is still being provided by myself, and then our website's going to be moved over, but we still have a couple more years on Greg's server. So we have a modest fundraising goal each year that we will have to better strategize in the future, since we've been so reliant on those membership dues. So that will be one target objective for the new cohort, is to develop a new fundraising strategy to be able to bring in $1,500 US every year, which isn't too bad. And perhaps if you guys decide to expand it a little bit more, you'd want to increase that goal. But we've tried to make this organization as easy to participate in as possible, because we're all full-time, probably multi-time work people who have multiple projects. And honestly, we've been trying to do this work for 4 years, and it's moved in very tiny increments, very slowly, because we're all very busy. And so we wanted to make sure that we manage the expectations of the new cohort and provide you with a nice little manual, step-by-step manual of what kind of we've created for you to just be easier. And that structure is just these quarterly webinars, and then increased kind of courses on the MightyNetwork where we can help provide training. So if there is a training we want to record and put on the MightyNetwork, perhaps you would want to do fundraising for that specific event. But right now we're just focused on providing the space for people to collaborate on the MightyNetwork, and then hosting these webinars where we invite practitioners and scholars on various topics in thematic regions to discuss participatory mapping and how it's used, and then kind of embed those stories into our platform so that we can become a living library of knowledge. My background is not in GIS, it's not in geography. My background is actually in conflict resolution, and I only stumbled upon this working in the field of international development with refugees in Palestine. And it became very apparent to me that mapping really was the difference between life and death for them, because if they didn't map their communities, they would run into settlements and settlers, and incursions could occur where it would become violent for them. So we had to rely on paper maps, which was a very interesting concept for me as a young person who's really I've had GPS since I was 18, so I was only driving for 2 years with paper maps. It just seemed like a very foreign concept to me. And so I came back to the States just to study the use of GIS in governance. And so I'm really happy to provide a different perspective, and we really enjoy the engagement of practitioners and scholars who might be coming from different backgrounds and areas of focus. And so we'd really like to meet you, and then have like a little opportunity for questions and answers. So I'll just open the floor to anyone. Maybe John, would you like to start? He's been our advisor for the last couple of years and has been amazing at spearheading our journal. We wouldn't be able to do any of this without him. I'm so thankful for his guidance.
Excellent. Hi, my name is John Corbett. I think that probably that few of you had heard before. I work at UBC. I'm also a participation mapper. I've been into map making ever since I did my undergraduate honors thesis back in the late 1980s. And so participatory mapping is now, thankfully, my sort of principal area of research. And increasingly, we're doing more and more web-based participatory mapping. So using the geospatial web, developing mobile apps in iOS and Android, and tying it together with sort of map interfaces and dashboards that allow us to work with large quantities of data, but still to try and sort of visualize and make sense of it. So yeah, that's really me. Which one of you is Kitty? Hey Kitty, I was speaking with Mike Goodchild the other day, and he mentioned your name, eh? So I thought, well, I'm sure I've heard that name before. So really nice to put a face to. He was saying that I should definitely get in contact with you. So nice to put a face to the name.
Well, thank you for relaying that. I appreciate it. Nice to hear.
Well, he was speaking very highly of you.
Oh. Well, thank you. Shall I just introduce myself since I've now taken over the conversation? Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, my name is Kitty Courier, and Mike Goodchild was my advisor, my PhD advisor, well, my master's advisor, and I So let me back up. I did my dissertation on participatory mapping for environmental planning, focusing on Western Bali in Indonesia. And after graduation, I went back to Bali and actually am now working for an Indonesian marine conservation organization. But I'm about to transition to a postdoc back at the University of California, Santa Barbara, because the pandemic has made it very difficult to get a visa. So unfortunately, I'll have to take a little bit of time out of Indonesia. But anyway, my work in participatory mapping really was going back to what you said, Charla. I was specifically looking at how to use digital mapping tools in a place where a lot of people have never used laptop or desktop computers before. And so looking at sort of the opportunities, challenges, and a little bit ethics of that for my work. But the past few years, I've really been wearing a hat as a marine scientist rather than a geographer, although participatory mapping has been part of my work in marine spatial planning. But I'm transitioning a little bit in this postdoc in geoinformatics, but I'm still very much interested in this community. And so I appreciated getting the email to learn about this meeting and this group. And I was at the 2017 conference as well, which was pretty much the last time I was immersed in a community of participatory mapping enthusiasts. So I am interested to plug back into this group and learn from you all and everyone else in this network. But I've been out of the field, I guess, for a little bit. So I'm a little bit behind, but that's all I'll say for now. So thank you.
No, not behind at all. I mean, we've been in contact through Will McClintock and all of that. And the driver from Bali is still in my phone and I am dying to go back. So thank you for connecting me with them. They were super, super helpful. Would someone else like to go? I hate forcing people to go. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry. I'm usually doing Zoom, not Skype, so I don't know where the buttons are immediately. Dan Collins here. I'm a professor down at Arizona State University, where I've been for 34 years, believe it or not. But my background is probably a little different than most of you guys anyway. I come out of fine arts, and a lot of my work in the studio gravitated towards mapping and interactive maps and the building of three-dimensional models using computer numerically controlled routing machines and so on, and wound up doing interactive maps for the Exploratorium in San Francisco and other science museums and that kind of stuff. So that sort of oddly led me to a PhD program at ASU. Even though I was a tenured faculty, they let me go into another department and pursue a project around participatory mapping. But the idea was to use PGIS for mapping cultural artifacts and events and actions. So kind of a not infrastructure so much as more of the soft underbelly of culture, and how would you place that on a map, right? So an example might be a poem uttered in a particular landscape, and give that a so poetry with geo coordinates. That's my T-shirt, you know. So I also am president of something called the Telluride Institute in Colorado, and we do a lot of work with watershed education and a lot of indigenous communities locally in the Four Corners region of the United States. So we have Utes and Navajos and Apaches and others that we interact with, and we have a couple of Native American indigenous folks on our board who kind of guide us. And so we're very interested in using PGIS as a way of empowering those disenfranchised communities. And so very similar to what you were saying, Charla, about the Palestinians, I think mapping could be a very powerful instrument. We haven't done much with those communities, but that's part of my goal with joining this group. So great to meet you all, and thanks for inviting me to this meeting.
Welcome. Welcome, Dan. Jessica, would you like to go?
Sure. I'm another one of those used to Zoom, so I hope I'm unmuted now.
Yes, you are.
Awesome. Right. So I'm a geographer at the University of Kentucky, finishing up my PhD work here. So I'm excited to finally be able to kind of poke my head back out and go back to doing the fun stuff of geography, which for me is participatory mapping. I've done a whole bunch of participatory mapping around environmental work and also around art. My dissertation actually is about public art. I'm a weird geographer. Yeah, so I've done quite a bit of participatory mapping here in Lexington with our Map Shop program, which is our outward-facing unit that actually makes maps for the community. And yeah, I'm just really excited to get back to doing some participatory mapping. This is the fun, cool part of geography for me.
Jessica, is that map instrument, is that map tool something that is easily shareable, or is there a link to that site at the University of Kentucky? Or
Oh, Map Shop?
yeah,
there is a website for it. I think it's just mapshop@uky or .uky.edu. There's not really any tools. We use a lot of digital stuff, but we have a master's in digital mapping at the university. So a lot of the students from that get pulled in to help. I think what they've been doing most recently, I think the Housing Equity Task Force requested a whole bunch of assistance. And so the most recent students for that program have been making maps for the city about housing equity. It was a little rougher when I was the research assistant for it, just getting off the ground. So it's really random what I helped with, but yeah, they're doing some interesting stuff now.
great.
Yeah, that sounds super exciting. And then we still have Dave.
Yeah, am I on? I'm also one of those. I'm actually more of a Microsoft Teams user. So can you guys hear me all right? So I'm coming to you live from Sydney, Australia. So the accent probably doesn't align to what you're expecting, but I'm originally from California, and I only recently got into geospatial and participatory mapping. So I had the bright idea to start a geospatial company a year ago here in Sydney. We just turned a year last year, and what we found is we started to collaborate quite a bit with the universities here in New South Wales, the University of New South Wales, the University of Sydney, and Western Sydney University, and working with their participatory mapping projects to actually bring those to life, to enable them to get funding to continue projects. So a project that we're working on with University of New South Wales is Koala Count, because there's no effective way to actually count koalas in Australia, believe it or not. And so we're using participatory mapping to actually enable Indigenous communities and citizens to capture that. And we've built a tool to help them to do that. And then our aim is to then go to the New South Wales government to fund that project long term. And so that's our focus. Again, I'm not I don't come from an academic background, but absolutely love the work that you guys are doing, and we really sort of see ourselves as an enabler to continue to do that work and support it through bringing it to life on a platform, and also ensuring you have the grants and money to continue those projects. So yeah, that's me. Happy to be here and really excited.
That's amazing. Sorry, I just had to go look at the Koala Map website.
Yeah.
What a unique and interesting thing to be mapping. I just love it.
It's actually a really interesting problem because especially in New South Wales. New South Wales is the state that Sydney's in, and they have, the government has quite a lot of money, but the populations in New South Wales have been decimated, as you know, with the fires, and so they don't actually know the state of the population, the koala populations, and so there's this big focus on ensuring that we actually have koalas. It's a massive state or Australian animal, but we still have no way of actually knowing what state those populations are. So it's an exciting project, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we definitely all map a wide array of things.
Yeah.
So did I miss anybody? I got everybody. So I wanted to kind of just give you a brief little overview of our kind of bylaws. I will be sending out a copy of our bylaws and a copy of the handbook. But really, realistically, like, we are Robert's rules, but we don't often have to vote on too many things. We're kind of very cooperative with one another. So obviously that's going to change from cohort to cohort. We'll definitely be around to facilitate kind of a group norming session after this, maybe in our August meeting. But I do think that we haven't really had to enforce a strict set of norms. We're all pretty respectful, and we hope that that will continue on. We do have about 3 or 4 members who did not come on in 2017 because we tried to stagger some of our admissions. So not all of us were just up and leaving you guys without you knowing what you're doing. So there will always be someone from the board past cohort with you. I will be leaving. Ephraim, what are you doing? I don't know if you're leaving us or are you staying?
I'll probably be staying because I came in at the director late. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people are staying on because we just enjoy this work and we've gotten to know one another. I'm going to go take over the editorial management position from John so he can have a break, even though he spent all of his sabbatical working for us. So I don't know when he's going to get a break. But so you'll still be seeing a lot of me as well. I'm sure, John, you're staying on in the editorial team, but I'm sure you'll probably continue to provide support the best you can. We have 2 meetings once a month on the first Tuesday of every month. You guys are welcome to change that schedule if you feel like it doesn't fit for you. But we really have struggled to provide a global time that everyone could participate with at once. So it has been a little interesting trying to juggle what was learned in the beginning versus what's learned at the end of the day. We have talked about recording all of our meetings, but we decided not to as a group. That obviously can change with the new majority coming in. But for this, I'm recording this and putting it on the MightyNetwork just so you guys could see the morning video and get to know the morning crew. Obviously, you're not going to have this big in-person event like we did at the beginning of our cohort, which kind of bonded us. So I think it's important that we try to have some sort of icebreaker at the beginning of your meetings, as cliche as that might sound, just to get to know one another. We have step-by-step outline of what the webinars entail and what steps need to make sure that those are successful. Otherwise than that, like I said, we really consolidated what we do to make it as easy as possible to continue on our mission. So does anybody have any questions? Would you like me to go over the MightyNetwork with you?
Well, I'll jump in with a question. I would also appreciate an overview of the MightyNetwork. But how many people are on the executive committee?
14. But I would say probably there's a group of about 5 or 6 of us that meet really regularly. Some of them are advisors, so they kind of stay up to date on what we've been discussing, but really only kind of step in on a quarterly basis. They drop in and out. And I think that that's partly why there hasn't been any strong voting measures, is because people are very flexible with each other's time. which has been really great. And I think is what kept this organization alive, is that you can kind of come in and come out. Obviously with COVID and everything in the last year, like we all had to kind of take a step back, and we've been really forgiving about that. But we will be looking for a replacement for me as secretary, who's kind of like the glue that keeps everything together by annoying everyone to do what they said they were going to do and to send out a monthly email with the agenda. So if you're interested in that role, please let me know.
Is there an existing set of bylaws or any other guiding documents that?
Yep, here, let me give you a little tour of our drive, except I've lost you because I have too many tabs open. 1 second. Okay. Over here. How do I share? Oh, there you go. As you said, everything's in Zoom. One second. So we coordinate all of our documents on Google Drive. Once you've confirmed with me that you're interested, I will share it with you. We have all of our documentation from the last 2 conferences, all of our blog posts, our designs. We have email lists and resources. We spent a lot of time going through and making sure that we had the contact information of all the geography departments across the globe. So we have a kind of robust set of email lists. We also have email lists for all of our members. We have a little space for our editorial board. So as we scale up that aspect of our organization, you'll see that grow. Information on recruitment and membership, as well as our nonprofit status. We wanted a treasurer, nobody wanted to do it, so I got stuck doing secretary and treasurer at the same time. I'm welcome to change that up. It's free for the business account at my credit union. So I'm always free to just hand over the login credentials, and you can just keep it at my bank. They're probably the best bank you're gonna find. So we'll just keep that, and then we can just have you sign some documents, and whoever's taking over the secretary role. As I said, our fundraising goals aren't very high, so there's not a whole lot of money to swindle or manage. So it should be able to make someone feel more comfortable if they would like to be treasurer or secretary or both. For our bylaws, you'll be able to, and I'll send out a copy of this. It's obviously open information, and you can find it on our website. But it's just a really brief document, and probably with lots of comments and feedback, as it's a continuous working document about our purpose, which is really to develop, test, and evaluate, apply methodology to participatory mapping, and to manage, to help managers and people solve problems through participatory approaches to GIS, and to cooperate with other organizations in practice and study of mapping. We do have an ongoing relationship with the University of Helsinki and their Institute of Participatory Mapping. This will just go over the officer roles. As I said, we do have a full role. Bruto was our president. I think Monty's our vice president. I think Bruto will be moving on, so we would need someone to take over the president and vice president role. And really, kind of their main role would be to just chair the meetings, so that the secretary is also the facilitator. But obviously, with having 2 meetings, one in the morning and one in the evening, the secretary kind of ends up being the de facto facilitator. And kind of the person who makes sure that information is transferred between the morning and the afternoon group via our notes. We have our special advisors, which allows for senior scholars and practitioners to participate, but not on necessarily the same role or obligation that the executive committee has. And they're more there to say that they're open to connecting with people in our membership who could use advice or advising in a specific thematic area or region. 10 years, a 4-year term, and you're required to attend these monthly meetings. There are sometimes subcommittee meetings, but really that's going to be kind of on how aggressively you would like to tackle fundraising or other objectives outside of the direct scope that we're handing to you. But we have had times where we did have subcommittees, for instance, to redo the website and to move over to the MightyNetwork. We would, under normal circumstances, if we had an influx of candidates, we would have elections. I think we've had just enough interested candidates come forward to kind of meet our roster. So I don't think we'll be having necessarily elections, but we would like people to commit to a tenure. And the people who are wanting to do a second tenure are just going to continue. We would like to see a wider diversity and a bigger group kind of take part in cohorts. So not just the 6, 7 people who've been participating, but full of maybe 15, 7 in the morning, 7 or 8 at night would be better for us. So I, as I said, I will send these over to you. Robert's rules is kind of our way of decision making. So 1 vote for each member. Advisors don't have voting rights. And then we have, as I said, an operational manual that you'll also get a copy of that will help guide you through the different accounts that we have, the different folders and files, give you a little bit more of a history of why we made these changes to kind of our scope of activities and our operations. And then each quarter, there's a webinar coordinator, a communications coordinator, and a technology coordinator. So each one requires 3. You may do 2 webinars for your 4 years or more, depending on how you want to volunteer, but it's obligatory that everyone at some point in their tenure does a webinar with 2 other support advisees who would bring on a guest in a specific topic to discuss an experience or a method or a case study in participatory mapping. And so this will really just help coordinate that for you. It even comes with a checklist of things to do to prepare for your quarterly activity. And we just found this to be a lot easier than planning a really big production, and it doesn't require a lot of day of coordination. So the stress put on our board members was reduced, our executive. Are there any questions about some of these operations or these documents before I move on to kind of giving an overview about the MightyNetwork?
No, not for me.
All right, well, let me dive right in. So obviously we could have built out something ourselves using another platform. This seemed really straight to the point. We didn't have to pay for, someone to be on call to back up everything. MightyNetwork handles all of that tech support. And we've just had a really good response from it so far. And so we're hoping to build out our community. So when you arrive in the MightyNetwork, you're going to see just like a chat scroll where you can see other people's posts like you would on any other social media. And you can go through and you can leave comments, the same as. As a member, you have the opportunity to kind of post anything, including creating polls and attaching files. and sharing media. And so we're hoping to encourage our membership to engage one another and to share their experiences, content, and stories. We also allow for you to be able to find other participatory mappers. If you provide information, which apparently I didn't, about my city, it will actually georeference you to members that are closest to you in hopes of connecting across collaboration. We also have created a number of topic headings, so when someone posts, it'll ask them to assign it to a topic. This will just make it easier for people to find participatory mapping underneath specific topics. So if I'm looking for something, for instance, as a job listing, you can follow it and that will pop up. What's great is when you as the host, so if us as an executive committee wanted to message our membership, we would just create a post and it would arrive in their email, as well as being pinged here at the top of their screen. And then if they have the mobile app downloaded, it would send them a push notification that the administration has posted a new article. So it allows us to get rid of some of the other software like MailChimp to be able to just curate the experience this way. Our members are not obligated to enter the MightyNetwork space to participate. They can like things or reply to things directly in the email, which helps with engagement, particularly for individuals who are not comfortable navigating new technological spaces. So here you can see all the topics under job listing, and vice versa. You can go ahead and leave comments here. But at least now that I'm following it, it will be at the top of my page. This also lets us schedule events that can be synced to anyone's calendar. And this is particularly useful if any of our members want to schedule an event. It doesn't have to be an ISPM event. It can be any event that our membership is doing that's focused on participatory mapping or mapping a little bit more broadly, can come and be deposited here. And then if your calendar is synced, it'll update your calendar. So you should be able to have access to all things participatory mapping, hopefully in the future, as we try to encourage our membership to participate. We have special committee spaces. This one's for our journal. We have one specifically for our board. This is kind of where we can post stuff to one another, to the people in the board, and be able to communicate this way. Except now I see I didn't miss Dan's comment. And then we have IG, the journal here. And so for anybody interested in joining the committee for the board, please go ahead and invite yourself, add yourself to this group. And then we also have Mission Catalyst, which is a special group for those who want to donate regularly to our vision. So they could come here, it would ask them to register in the amount that they want, and they would get their own space. And so we haven't really strategized on how we would like to fill this space, maybe with something unique for people who have committed to financially supporting our cause. So that might be one aspect that the new cohort can really dive into and kind of decide how they want to tackle this. But we built this very quickly, like a week ago, just because we had I think $100 more to meet our fundraising goal to pay for the network. And so we started that as a good way. We used to use PayPal, but the whole goal with this being an automated system was to get off of PayPal and focus on just fundraising through this. So you can actually share this link and on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn in email to try to get people to join. Once they donate, they're automatically in our membership and are allowed on the platform, but you can also join for free. We also are focused on providing these workshop tools. So we are in the middle of working on all of these things. Ephraim's been chipping away, and hopefully at some time when I have more time, I will also be adding some teachings that I have been doing and able to record. So I just need to go through and add them. And so hopefully this will be a library of different types of resources for people, but also any member can come and help contribute to our workshops. So it's very open source and collaborative, as we kind of all believe we all have a unique perspective on what can and should be done in certain situations. And so we really would like our membership to be more engaged in the co-creation of workshops with us. We also run a glossary of very specific resources that's on here. So if you're looking for software, publications, discussion forums, they're all in this format where you can kind of scan through and find what you need. And so we're hoping to always contribute and update this for our members as well. But hopefully this brings a bit more clarity. Because as I said, when I first ventured on this journey to participatory mapping, I knew very little about this space. And I found that I was overwhelmed as a decision maker. So hopefully this can really be a place where people like me and others can come to kind of learn what this is and who don't have a background in geography. So that's definitely a major goal. We've talked about translations and having specific subcommittees in different languages. Right now, MightyNetworks does not allow for multilingual setups, but we're hoping it is in their feature list in the next couple of years to provide. So hopefully we'll be able to provide that, but we would still like to provide a Spanish-speaking subcommittee who might actually meet on a semi-regular basis and discuss topics in their native languages, because we're also very big in preserving culture and wanting different peoples to preserve their own culture in their own way. And we all know that a lot of things can't be translated, and so it's important to be able to create spaces for that type of engagement. But obviously we are a limited group of people and have had not very much time to commit to this. So we're really, really excited to see what the new cohort might have in store. So does anyone have any questions?
If nobody jumps in, I'll ask a question. What is the typical agenda for a typical executive committee meeting where you're not trying to recruit new participants?
Yeah, so our weekly agenda usually starts off with our webinar. So who's running the next webinar? How is that going? Is there any support that we need to provide outside of those 3 volunteers at that time? We usually have a update sent from the journal. So either it'll be me, but John has been sending us updates and we'll review that and figure out how we might be able to support the journal in community engagement and outreach, because we do see that as part of our agenda. A lot of it has been like upkeep and maintenance on the website. So we had to transfer a lot of what we were doing from our static page to the MightyNetwork. That's almost complete. I would say we're in the final stages of doing that. And then obviously if we have fundraising goals, that would be on the agenda. And then on every agenda is this question of courses and work, like how can we create this online learning environment with specific tools or advice from practitioners and experts. And so that takes up all of our time usually.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Any gaps that I can help fill? Please, if you end up not feeling comfortable to ask any questions now and just want to message me later, you can. You can either do it via email or by the app, or let's say you're brushing your teeth later and you're like, oh, I didn't ask this question. Like, please feel free to reach out to me. My phone number is also at the end of all my email signatures. So I also deal in WhatsApp and Signal and all of the other different messaging apps because I have to for work. So Otherwise, yeah, I know John can probably also answer questions. Same with Ephraim. Hopefully, we'll have more participants next month. We're missing Marina and Rudo today. They're usually in our evening meetings. But I think there was about 11 people in our morning meeting. So it was a good turnout. Obviously, it all just depends on where you are in the world. Well, John, Ephraim, do you want to add anything else?
I would just would say that historically the meetings have been really well organized. I mean, obviously Charla is doing a lot of work making sure like executive meetings are quite productive and within an hour bound most of the time. And sometimes we also do Saturday works, like a weekend where we set up something that we want to do, either the website or some documents, and then we sort of, wherever you are in the world, work on it. It's not always been successful, but it has its ups and downs. So obviously, the new cohort can think of ways to improve how we collaborate, and I think having new ideas would definitely improve how we can work better as a group.
Charlie, I had a quick question. So from here, should we just keep an eye out for the next meeting, or what's the process from here and things that we should be keeping an eye on in Mighty Networks?
Yeah. So here, let me share my screen again. I feel like this will be the best way to probably do this. All right. So if you would like to join, please go ahead. You'll be able to click on this and you'll be able to join this. This is an open network. I can also invite you if you're having trouble. But our events for our committee meetups are here. I'm going to be reaching out to you because I'd like to compile a list of all of the board members, because we would like to obviously highlight the new board. So in addition to making sure that you're in the committee space, that you're synced to these monthly meetings, which you'll see they're on repeat. So you can see all the dates. The next one's going to be Tuesday, August 3rd at 9 a.m. or 7 p.m. Same Tuesday. So you can see there when they're all coming up. And if you click on it and you click on add to calendar, you can, wow, I just heard my accent. You can sync your calendar here and have it with Outlook or anything you need. So you can do only my RSVP events or sync to all events, depending on how active you would like to be. And then, yeah, so we'll have kind of another onboarding strategic planning session for our week of August to invite all of our new members. We're going to try to probably have some sort of August meeting, try to find a time where all of us can meet as much as possible, just to get a little bit of FaceTime. So I will be emailing everyone to send out a doodle poll to try to find one time. Obviously, we know that's not going to happen for everyone, but we would really like to just have everyone in one big room at least once a year for planning.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem. John, I think we still need to meet to talk about the journal. I think I was supposed to email you this week.
Yeah, totally. I think we should meet to talk about transitioning.
Yeah. So, and if anybody's interested in the journal, please feel free to reach out to us. We're also always looking for guest editors and contributors. So you should be hearing a call for contributions this fall.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much for joining, whatever your time is. I'm hitting the evening time, so I'm going to go have a snack and hit the hay. But thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Charla.
Thank you,
It's nice
Charla.
meeting
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Nice seeing everyone.
Bye.
Ciao. Bye.